Hey guys, how's it going everybody? My name is Blitzwinger, and ladies and gents, welcome on back to a brand new LEGO DC Supervillains video, and today we are going to go on ahead and showcase the big figs of the DC Supervillains video game. There are a few that are brand new as far as we have never even seen them in previous LEGO games, but even the ones that we have seen have been for the most part redone and have some new elements brought to them. Some characters, like for example Atrocitus, I think is exactly the same, I would like to say, from what I remember, so I don't really remember any specific differences between this variation and the previous variation of Atrocitus that we saw in Lego Batman 3 Beyond Gotham, but it's still a pretty ridiculously cool design. So nevertheless, of course, don't forget, like always guys, hit that like button down below if you guys enjoyed the video. But in addition to that, here's where I need your help, and that is to let me know down in the comment section below your favorite big figs, because I'll make a video that will rank them all. So if you can go on ahead and name your top 5, that would be absolutely awesome. And of course, rate them from 5 to 1, with 1 being your absolute favorite. So let's go on ahead and bring up our character roster list and begin at the very top left corner and work our way all the way down. So first and foremost, we have Monitor, which is probably, I guess a little bit of both, one of my personal favorite big fig designs in the entire game. I think he turned out so ridiculously cool. You could just see how epic the detail work on this particular character is. Usually, I will say this for big figs, a lot of the big figs I'm not a big fan of. Like, we'll see Mongul in a little bit, and I'm not a big fan of big figs like that one, where there's not a lot of details on the big fig. So if you're gonna do a big fig that doesn't have a lot of details, which to be fair, Monitor doesn't really have too many details outside of the helmet and the chest plate, but the paintwork is really cool, and there's a lot of cool details in the actual armor. So in that sense, I think he turned out pretty sweet and quite epic. I wonder if we can super jump while in ginormous form. Wow, we actually can. How crazy is that? And then you could fly. Woo-wee! So you could definitely be a pretty epic conquering force in the DC Supervillains video game using Anti-Monitor. So from there, let's go on ahead and proceed to the next character, which is actually going to be Atrocitus. So here he is. And of course, he is pretty much, for the most part, like I said before, the exact same design as we had seen before in Lego Batman 3. So it's a bit unfortunate. I do wish maybe, honestly, like with Atrocitus, I do think he could have benefited with some more detail work. Like maybe give a little bit more texturing to the shoulder pads, and maybe even resculpt the head a little bit so it's not such a smooth dome up top. I think that would have really been nice to see. But either way, it's Atrocitus, so you kind of have to be stoked for that. From there, let's go on ahead and transition to the next one, which is going to be Bane right here, or sorry, Venom powered Bane, which looks epic. I really do like this design quite a bit. I do kind of, to an extent, wish they would have maybe brought in some more detail work from the Lego Batman movie Bane, but I think that, again, overall, it's a pretty cool design. I will say that, once again, some things on the big figs, like for example the belt there, or even the little wires or tubing on the arms, it does seem to falter and look a little bit flat, if you know what I mean. Like, I just think it would have benefited if maybe they would have just raised that up or like sculpted it in or something like that. And to be fair, I don't know if that's a regulation or something that they can't do because of the Lego team or license or something like that, where they have to like make it look like the actual releases of Bane and things like that. But I just think it would have benefited tremendously from having that little bit of extra detail brought into the design. Because if we look at the backpack, for example, look how cool that is, that it's like an actual physical piece. And I think it would have been cool to see that transition onto the arms themselves, which, again, they do have a cool glow effect, but I think it would have been cool if that was actually sculpted in. Either way, let's go on ahead and see that ridiculously awesome animation, and then go on ahead and transition to the next big fig, which is going to be the bear form of Beast Boy, which is awesome to see. I love that the Beast Boy designs actually maintain his haircut, which is something I never actually noticed in the shows or anything like that. I guess maybe it is a thing that they do in order to kind of maintain some form or some level of personality for Beast Boy. So I think overall it looks pretty awesome. I think that we have seen somewhat better designs in the past with some more fur characters, or like, for example, when they've designed, what was it? I think it was Man-Thing in Lego Marvel Superheroes 2. Oh, no, sorry, Swamp Thing. I always confuse. Man-Thing is DC, Swamp Thing is Marvel. So Swamp Thing looks insanely epic in that game because he has all these cool little branches and all this sculpting on the actual design of the character. And I think, again, it would have been cool if some of that fur was actually sculpted instead of just being painted on. So just my personal opinion. But again, from there, let's go on ahead and transition to the second row of characters. I guess we might as well showcase him. So this is Chang Tzu. And I don't know if you consider him a big fig because he's pretty much brick built, but he is a larger figure. So if you want to include him in this list, I guess there you go. It's only fair to go on ahead and show the big egg character there, which is one of the more unique characters we have ever gotten. So I think that that's definitely quite cool. From there, let's transition to the one and only Clayface, which I love because, again, look at Clayface. You see how all of that is actually sculpted? It's not just this flat design with like lines to try to make it look like Clayface. So I think they absolutely knocked it out of the park with this one. I think the exact same thing that they did for Clayface here, if they did for characters like Atrocitus, or more specifically and more accurately, I guess, for Beast Boy, I think would have looked so cool because it really makes the character look a lot more complete that way instead of just being something where it's like, oh, okay, well, it's just the exact same buck for the character with a little bit of different paint. So I think that that is very, very cool to see. From there, let's transition to the next large character, and that would be Cyborg's mech suit. So there it is. It is actually probably a little bit taller than your average big fig, which is kind of interesting. And it is a brick-built costume. Of course, we have seen somewhat of a similar costume in the Lego Batman 3 video game, but I will actually say that I like this one a bit better. I think it looks a little bit cooler. I think that they did a cool design with the glowing red lights and elements. So I think that that looks pretty cool. And more distinctly, you can really tell that it's something that kind of like transforms out of Cyborg, which I appreciate as well because I think it looks really, really, really cool and works well with the overall design, as you can see right there. All right, so from there, let's go on ahead and I guess not transform at all because he's just stuck in the... Wait, there we go. I'm like, I can't bring up any other characters. Here is the big baddie of the DC universe, and that would be Darkseid. Now, Darkseid is a weird pick because I really, really like this big fig. I think it's one of the best ones in the game. But again, I really do think that he would have benefited from some cool sculpt work. Like if they could have sculpted some of those like cracked pieces on the chest and everything like that, and maybe, whoa, okay. Oh, there goes that laser vision. And maybe some of the belt and the shoulder pads could have actually been sculpted. I think he would have been even better. But that being said, he still looks ridiculously cool. I love the idle animations on this character. I love how ridiculously OP he can seem just from looking at him. You're like, oh, okay, that guy's pretty powerful, you know? So I think that they nailed the overall presence of Darkseid with this particular design. So from there, let's transition onwards and forwards. And by the way, yes, I will agree with the people who say, hey, it would have been cool if we did get Clayface as he was seen in the Lego Batman movie, that kind of more brick-built component. I think that would have been cool too. So I will go on ahead and agree with that. But let's move right along to Doomsday. So we have seen Darkseid. It only is appropriate to see Doomsday. I'm a huge fan of this design. I know a lot of people would much rather get the previous iterations of Doomsday where he's not in this costume or hazard suit. He's in that like classic, you know, just spikes everywhere kind of look. I think that, first of all, maybe we'll still get that as a DLC. But second of all, I will say that I love the way that they nailed this look. We have the clawed arms and everything like that still present, but at the same time, you get this really cool suit that, again, has sculpted detail. Like, you can see the little armbands are actually sculpted. The pipes are sculpted. They're not just painted on. Imagine if that belt right there going across the torso was also sculpted. I think that would have been really cool. Or maybe at least the belt part, like the belt that's going across the torso, could have been maybe painted on, but the lower half should have been sculpted on. I think that would have brought it together even more. But overall, really sick design, really, really cool character, and very cool to see him on the roster. From there, let's go on ahead and transition to one of the ones that I would describe as really... Okay, let's just get him out here first, because I would say that, to me, I don't want to spoil it that this is my favorite Big Fig, but I would say that it's one of the very, very best, because look at how much personality this character has. They sculpted in the collar of the actual jacket. There's so much paint work. There's the really cool, unique weapons for this specific character, which just looks insanely cool. You got belt buckles, little details all throughout. This is one of those, like, wow, if we ever got a Big Fig like this in real life, that would be sick, because look at how much print work and attention to detail there is with this character, which kind of makes me think, like, maybe it is because they kind of talk to Lego and they're like, hey, we're probably never going to make a Frankenstein Big Fig, so just design it however you want. So maybe that's the reason why some of them have to have certain limitations more so than others. But either way, let's go on ahead and continue. And that is definitely one of the coolest. Let's go on and move on to Gorilla Grodd, who looks great. I think this is the best version of Gorilla Grodd we have ever gotten. I love the sculpted armor plates and all that. Again, makes the character feel very compelling and really well built. It's not just, again, that smooth brick fig design with just a bunch of paint. We actually see elements of armor, which makes him look far more armored up and makes him look really, really, really cool. Kind of reminds me of the Injustice look for Gorilla Grodd. From there, let's transition onwards and forwards to the first appearance of Granny Goodness in a Lego game. And they knocked her out of the park. I love the fact that she has the cape going, so I think that that's definitely quite unique. I don't think we have had... I don't want to say any, because I definitely could think of a... Well, actually, I could think of maybe one or two Big Figs, and I can't even remember if they did have capes. But either way, it's not a particularly common element that we see on Big Figs. They did nail this design, though. I really love that they went ahead and finally included her in a game. And they did do quite a good job with the overall look for this character. Again, maybe could have benefited with some more kind of clear armor plating and so on and so forth. But overall, pretty sweet design, cool pose, and a pretty sweet idle animation as well. So from there, let's transition onwards and forwards to our fourth row of characters. And that would kick things off with Kalibak, who looks insanely epic. Again, I really, really like this design quite a lot. I love that they nailed the head sculpt, the hair, and everything like that. Looks super duper sick for this one. And it's one of those rare designs that just looks really, 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 really almost perfect, I would say. Again, tiny little things that I would adjust for this one would be maybe make the armbands actually sculpted pieces, just because like you look at that head sculpt and you're like, holy moly, look at all that detail and everything being sculpted in. But then a lot of the rest of the design kind of feels a little bit flat. So I think it would have been cool if they were able to sculpt a bit more into the actual Big Fig. But outside of that, really terrific, very cool looking. And even though I'm not a big fan of the character of Kalibak, and I know pretty much of him just purely from the animated Justice League show, just like I do with Granny Goodness, I would say that this makes me a bigger fan of the character, because it's just such a cool design and a really fun character to play as in the game. From there, we transition to Killer Croc, which is a cool design, and I like the fact that they actually do have the sculpted bits and pieces for this one. I think it's a really good, solid Big Fig, not one of my favorites, especially because I really, really like the design that we saw in the Lego Batman movie, and I thought that that one was just a tiny little bit better as far as just the look for Killer Croc. Like, I'm not a big fan of the flat kind of faced Killer Croc. I like the one that actually looks like a croc, so I think that one is a little bit better. But either way, I think that this is a pretty good one as well. Then we have King Shark, which is an awesome design. I love this one. They absolutely knocked it out of the park. King Shark is a shark. He sure is. And one of those very cool, unique characters that seems to be getting more and more popular, especially after his few appearances on the Flash CW TV show. So that is definitely cool to see. From there, let's transition to our next row of characters. And kicking off that row of characters is going to be Mammoth.
I got a feeling something's about to be smashed up.
I love that beard. That beard is just epic. And also, I don't know why, honestly, the torso for this character just keeps reminding me of Thanos, which, again, maybe is one of those elements that kind of would make you think like, hey, maybe it's because most of the big figs that are flat kind of have similar armors and so on and so forth. So because of that, maybe it could have been cool to see something a bit more unique for him. But either way, I love that beard, and it makes him stand out just for that reason alone. He's one of the more unique looking big figs just off of that. From there, let's transition to the next character, which is actually going to be a variation on Martian Manhunter. This is the true form of Martian Manhunter. So you can see the much larger scale Manhunter here. And this is a really cool design. I love the detail work on the headpiece. Like, I like that it actually did sculpt that kind of teardrop shape into the head of the Martian Manhunter. So I think that that's really cool attention to detail for this character. And the transformation is pretty sweet as well. Then we move right along to the previously aforementioned Mongul. And you'll notice that a Mongul, for the most part, outside of those little rivets, which looks really cool, he feels a little bit flat. Again, I think that if the gauntlets were raised up just like the rivets on the shoulder pads, I think he could have benefited from that. Same thing goes on those two little dots on the sides of his head, and maybe even that chest piece, if it was like kind of sticking out a little bit, I think it would have made him look way more armored up and therefore way more unique. But overall, still, again, very cool to see Mongul in a Lego game, because well, actually, maybe was he in Lego DC? Because I think he wasn't in Lego Batman 3, but now I'm trying to remember, and I think he might have been actually. But either way, we move along to Law. I absolutely love this design. I think it's one of the more unique big figs, just again, similarly to a character like Kalibak, for example, or Frankenstein. Look how awesome and unique this character is. I love that they went ahead and made him feel completely different to Gorilla Grodd, even though, of course, they have kind of that gorilla base going for them. I love that he has the brain on his back there, which is absolutely awesome. Again, this fig could have benefited from actually having some of that sculpted detail like Clayface did to make the fur look a little bit more accurate. But overall, just really, really love that design, and I think they knocked it out of the park with that one. Next up, we have a Parasite.
So much power, I don't know where to start.
There's Parasite, which there's Parasite. I don't have much to say about that one. Expect a top 5 worst big figs video soon. That's all I can say for now. So let the controversy begin, because I know people are going to find that to be controversial. Like, how dare you say that? From there, let's move on to Solomon Grundy, which is one of my favorites. I think he looks really cool. This is one of those figs that, again, I actually think it's perfectly good to have no raised details because, again, he's wearing a suit, so it doesn't need to have any raised elements. If you're a character like, for example, the Beast Boy Bear version, and it's got that fur, I think it benefits from, like, actually being sculpted out. Whereas something like this, you don't need to have that sculpt out element. And I think that even then, they did do some of that. Like you'll see on the shoulders, you can kind of see the torn pieces kind of sticking out. So I think that that looks cool. I like the design for this one. I like the idle animation. And overall, Solomon Grundy's pretty epic. So overall, one of my favorites and a really cool design. Then we have Solovar, of course, representing one of the challengers to Gorilla Grodd here. He's got a cool spear weapon, which is pretty unique. There really, as you saw, not too many big figs that come with any weapons. The only two I could think of really is, or two outside of Solovar, is Frankenstein and the Mencia Mala. So those would be the only ones outside of that that have weapons of any sort, so that's definitely quite cool and makes these characters quite unique in that sense. Then we move along to the last row of characters as we kick things off with Steppenwolf, which I love. This is one of the coolest and best big figs they've ever done, not just in this game. I think they knocked it out of the park. Such a cool design. I love that he's got those shoulder pads like actually sculpted in. The arm gauntlets are sculpted in. It would have been cool if that skull was raised, like that skull belt buckle. The axe is insanely epic. I'm just glad they didn't give us that brick built design they did for the Wonder Woman movie, because I think that this Steppenwolf is just heads and shoulders way better than that. It just looks so epic, and I really love the way that this one turned out. So from there, let's transition, ladies and gents, to the next big fig. We're getting close to the conclusion here. Here's Stompa. I don't know much about this character, but I will say, or I don't know anything about this character to be quite honest, but I love the way that this one turned out. I think they knocked it out of the park. Again, very clear that she's got a cool bit of armor sculpted in. I think that they did a really good job of sculpting that kind of armor presence into this character. I like the more almost square shape for the head, because it kind of gives her this kind of bulkier, almost like Juggernaut feel to this character, which is, from what I understand, kind of what she is. She's this kind of stomping force that creates seismic shocks with her stomp. So I think they did a very good job of translating that personality into this design and character. Then let's transition onwards and forwards to Trigon, who looks super duper sick. I think they did an excellent job with this one as well. I, for some reason, always thought that Trigon did actually have like a trident, so I'm kind of disappointed that maybe that wasn't included, but overall pretty sweet design still, and I really like the kind of more elongated look for the head they went with in order to make him look more accurate to the design of Trigon. From there, ladies and gents, it is time to transition to the last, but certainly not least, design in the game for big figs, and that would be Ultra Humanite. And notice how cool it is to see that sculpted work on the headpieces for the character. I think they did an excellent job with that. Again, if they could have sculpted some of that fur onto the rest of the character, it would have made him look much more complete, in my personal opinion, and would have made him look as one of the best big figs in the entire game. With that in mind, ladies and gents, let me know down in the comment section below your top 5 big figs, and of course, like always, don't forget to hit that like button, guys. Subscribe if you haven't yet, and I will of course hopefully catch each and every single one of you here for the next LEGO DC Supervillains video. Peace out, guys. I'll see you later, alligators. Bye bye, everyone.